Today, we will cover real trading examples from the crypto world with the top MACD trading strategy. I'll go over a couple of examples and explain everything in details again, and teach you how to make better entries with MACD. In the end, I'll show you how to get your money back if you ever stopped out. We will go over everything in step-by-step instructions. Hello friends, hope you're doing great. First of all, sorry for the late video. There are so many things to do nowadays, and I also want to bring only high quality and valuable content to you. As I promised, today is all about examples of trading with the MACD indicator. I hope that I can make things a bit easier for you so you can have more successful trades. If you're ready, let's start. Okay guys, let's start with this example. As you can see, a very nice downtrend is happening here, a pullback on a higher time frame. In step 1, we are confirming the 3 touch points on the trend line. Now you may ask, why minimum 3 touch points? In the book named Wake Up Methodology in Depth, one section particularly got my attention. He was measuring the distance between swings to measure the strength of the trend and possible trend reversals. This is how I improved the RSI divergence strategy. Check that video if you need it. And read the Wake Up books to improve yourself as a trader. So I asked myself how to measure the momentum and momentum loss in the trends or pullbacks. And MACD histogram was the answer. However, to measure it, we need to see at least 3 swings. So we need at least 3 touch points in the trend line. This is why I check a minimum of 3 touch points. Step 2 is the easy part. What I check is momentum with the MACD histogram. As you can see, we are losing the momentum with the downtrend. Each time, sellers are getting weak. This indicates to me that a possible trend change could be soon. However, this is only a possibility. Nothing is certain. I mostly look for 3 or more hills to understand the momentum between swings. However, in the next few weeks, I'll teach you the double divergence method, where you can only check 2 histogram hills. Please subscribe to the channel to learn about the double divergence with RSI and MACD in the next weeks. Step 3. Trading is all about observations and increasing the number of confirmations. To increase our chances with this strategy, we need a strong support or resistance. This is why I use the support resistance dynamic indicator. Instead of drawing the support and resistance lines one by one, this indicator does it for me. If we just go back, as you can see, this is a critical price level and tested many times. Price always struggled around this level. Another reason for this is the price itself, $65. Round numbers like 60, 65, 70, 75 are the significant price levels where the price activity is the highest. Those round levels may act as powerful support and resistance lines. Step 4. Confirming ending value. In this particular example, unfortunately, there is no confirmation for this, because as you can see, there are so many volume spikes to confirm what is what. Since this is an optional step, I have to skip this one. This is the reality of trading. Most of the time, you'll not be having 10 out of 10 confirmations. So you'll be managing your risks, depends on how many steps that you confirmed. Step 5. Entry. Let's look at the entry with the retail trader mindset. In the previous video, I forgot to mention that I would like to see a bull flag or retest back to the trend line before the entry, which makes it more secure. Okay, there is a little bull flag here, and you may place your entry order with this candlestick. If we see a market structure break with a new highs, it's an even better confirmation for a trend change. So market structure may change soon. There are two places where you can place your stop loss order. If you look for a quick gain, you may try to place your stop loss order under the flag. However, if you are willing to take risks, please do it under the trend line. I'll be using 1R to 2R risk-reward ratio. This is generally what I like. Okay, now let's watch the trade. Okay, let's see more examples. Now, please watch me and see how many times that you could have traded this pattern in a row. The only problem is entries. You have to improve your entries. Please do a lot of backtest to improve your entry style. I'm designing this YouTube channel in a certain way, from basics to advanced trading styles. Right now, I'll show you a powerful price action concept, order blocks, which I will teach you in the future in price action lessons. Before that, let's understand the smart money. Smart money is a massive capital that is controlled by financial institutions and professionals, such as banks, funds, hedge funds, and market makers. Many of these institutions use advanced trading software, which is worth of millions of dollars. These people hire the top-notch engineers and strategists to create this type of software or handle the trades. I know, feeling confused and lost. This is why I will introduce this concept slowly to you. Well, order block is a guessing game. Price action traders, you may also say smart money traders, try to anticipate where these smart money orders are placed. Let's get back to the chart to understand it. As you can see in this example, sometimes after the breakout, you'll notice the price sharply drops first and then starts a rally. Everything tells me on this chart there will be a rally. 3 touch points, MACD histogram, strong resistance, ending volumes, the breakout, there is even double bottom and a head and shoulders here. However, financial institutions know everything that we know. This is why sharp drops happen sometimes with candlesticks with long wicks. So they also want to start an uptrend here, and they also know where our stop loss orders are. And they trigger the stop loss orders, creating liquidation, a lot of money before starting a move. So they take our money and rally with it. What I mean is, you were right about your trend direction. However, smart money uses your money to start the rally. Will it happen all the time? No, not every time. There is nothing certain in financial markets. I just teach you this method in case if it happens. Okay, price action traders use so many different concepts to anticipate the moves of this smart money. One of them is called order block. They want to think outside of the box, different from beginners, instead of trading chart patterns only. So, where is the market structure changing from downtrend to uptrend? The moment that last lower high broken here and creates a new high. So this is called as market structure break. Where did this impulsive move start? Just right here, as you can see. So the last red candlestick before this impulsive move is our order block level. In this technique, you draw a line from the middle of this red candlestick as order block entry level. And let's see what happened. As you may see how many times this line worked. Smart money traders put their alarms or buy orders close to this line. This is not magic, just advanced type of trading. This is why I keep telling people, buy-sell indicators is not great for consistent profits. So why did I teach you this? If somehow you get stopped out from the MACD strategy, you can use the order blocks and set an alarm and get your money back. That's simple. The problem is sometimes it takes way too long. Hours, days, weeks, depending on your time frame. However, the good thing is this is a ready trade waiting for you to get your money back if you stopped out. Don't worry, I'll be teaching all these smart money price action trading concepts in the future. But I want to teach you all the basics of retail trading and starting strategies first. Then in the future we will move to more serious concepts. Okay folks, I hope you have gained much useful information and you'll be able to use it in your trading life. Mete is a lagging and a slow indicator. However, with this MACD trading strategy, you can make it useful. With a little practice, you can easily improve your game. Thank you for watching. If you want more videos like this one, please subscribe to the channel and like the video. Take care and see you soon.